Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Low Code Café, episode 60. My name is Bogdan Litescu, and for those of you that are new to this webinar, this is something that we are doing every week. It's a community, a technical event, where we get together to talk about upcoming features, but also demo the product, show various techniques that we learn on our support channel or that our team learns and has to share with the entire community. And sometimes we even have people in our community come and present what they are building with Plantanet. So in case this feels like a good medium for you to show your ideas, your what you are building, feel free to reach out. We'd be thrilled to have you. This webinar is also being recorded, so all past editions are on our YouTube channel. 59 hours of video already there. Very good content, technical content. And the agenda for today is we'll have some community updates with Chad, our sales engineer. He will give us more context about where Plantanet sits within our community, but also outside in the world. And then I will give you some news about upcoming releases. And finally, the biggest chunk will be Dale, our head of product, continuing what he started 3 weeks ago with building a mobile application with a different low-code platform, Adalo, and integrating it with Plantanet that powers all the backend logic. So today he will continue with that and give us new capabilities, new integrations. So I'm eager to see that part. So without further ado, let's get it to Chad to give us his findings, his ideas. Chad?
Awesome, thank you, Bogdan. So today I've got something that's a little bit different. Not necessarily low code specifically focused, but it does relate to low code and rather the future of what we could see. So I've recently learned about OpenAI Codex, which is in a way you can kind of think of it as a spin-off of the GPT-3 AI, if you've heard of it before. What a lot of people have done with it, and what you might have seen, which could jog your memory with it, is some people would go and have a little bit of fun and use the GPT-3 AI to just suggest different video ideas, book ideas, give it a title and have it create an entire script for like a movie. You've probably seen some things like that. They've made a few different viral videos of it. But the idea behind it, at least from my understanding, for that application was natural language processing. And what they've done, you've very likely heard of GitHub's Copilot, is GPT-3. There was a fork of it created. Fork's probably not the right word, but there was a variation of it created that utilizes it called OpenAI Codex, and that is actually what powered the GitHub Copilot. Now, if you're not familiar with Copilot, in short, what it was is as you were typing out all your code, you would start, say, the first line of creating a function. It would then fill in a suggestion for here's probably what you're going on based on the name, parameters that you have in there, and all that kind of stuff. And there was some controversy on it because of how it was using data, things like that. But ultimately, it was designed to reduce the amount of time needed for a developer to code. Now, where OpenAI Codex kind of comes in and does the next level of it is the data set that Copilot was using on its own for just Python, for example, was about 4 kilobytes. That's all the memory is what they call it that it had of what to do with Python. OpenAI Codex has like 15 or 12 kilobytes, so vastly more. And the nice thing about it is just in the last year, what we've seen happen between what it could do previously, which was more simple things like explain what's actually happening with some assembly code here, allow you to enter some natural language and then have it put out the templating program or the actual template code for something like Google. So all they wrote there in the layout, you can read it yourself. They hit generate, and what you see on the right is actually what was produced by it. That was what we were seeing about a year ago. And it's advanced on to allow you to actually go in and handle data specifically, tell it exactly what you want. In the bottom there, you can see the single line they put in to visualize all this data. So there's some previous setup, of course. It has to know where that data is, how to gather it. But what they've been doing within everything is, and I actually didn't have the screenshot here, I should have had it, but you'll see in that video that I have of the YouTube link here, which I'll put in the chat afterwards, they can have little plugins like for MailChimp and for other entities that allow the OpenAI Codex to easily go in and integrate with whatever type of a data set you might need. Think of it as a library for code, but for natural language processing. And with those kind of libraries, what they've been able to do is a lot of different things, from something like make a web page that says our message and save it to a file. And previously they had told in this program to say hello world with more empathy, and it would, or sorry, with more enthusiasm, and it would like capitalize the letters and put an exclamation at the end, and it kind of figures out a lot of that stuff on its own. But then they put in the message saying make a web server, and it punched out the code to create a web server on port 8000. They could then go to it, they would see the message below for hello world with empathy. And another option they went with is they started to create a full game. Now, it is a game in the sense that you're controlling it, you're working with it, but everything for this game was done just through talking to it, telling it what you want. The first thing they did was throw in an image of a silhouette person. So they just found that on Google Images, dropped that in and said, use this as the character silhouette, made it giant. They said, make it a little bit smaller. Then they told it to allow it to be controlled with the left and right arrows. That's it. They didn't tell it what that control means, anything about it. And with the code that it pushed out, you can now move it left and right with the arrows. They eventually had to go in, tell it to limit the character so that it can't go outside the bounds of the area. They also found that the scroll bar was there, so they said, you know, make it so the scroll bar isn't there, and it would do all this processing for them. They then added an asteroid photo, told it that the asteroid should go from the top to the bottom randomly in different areas. If it collides with the person, you lose, but they let it choose on its own what those messages should be. And we can see here, they were telling it to now rewrite the function to include words of encouragement. And just on the right there at the bottom, we can see it automatically said, try again. Now, this was their second attempt at it, because the first time they did it, it didn't actually write it as a function, so they redid it. But the first message was actually more interesting to me. It was something like, keep up with it, or something to that effect. Just how it chose that was very interesting to me, knowing how specific computers are with syntax and semantics. But ultimately, the last thing they wanted to do was have it do those checks. So if you lose, go ahead and show things and constantly check at a specific interval. It punched out all that code for them in a fraction of a second. It actually took them a lot longer to type. Over 9 minutes this took, and most of that time was just them typing and telling it what to do. So the biggest reason why I'm bringing this up today is low code in its current state requires a developer. Now, that's not necessarily bad. That's a good point, because you want it to be flexible. Whereas things like no code, they don't necessarily require a developer, but it's almost like a pre-built system in a way. And if you've used them, you'll kind of understand what I mean, comparing that to the low code side a little bit, because you can do what it allows, not what you want, if that kind of makes sense to you. And what I think is going to be happening with AI, and AI in general is going to be doing so many different things, but specifically the OpenAI Codex here is, it's going to take some of that requirements to have a developer in a low code system and remove it. So if you need to write some JavaScript that's specifically for the server side, or if you need to start messing around with some React templates, you may not necessarily know that if you're a citizen level developer. This could allow you to have that level of access and completely remove that 20% that's necessary for the developer side and make the citizen developer 100% in control of the low code application. So that's one of the things that I've seen recently, and where I think it will eventually come, because we're seeing games being built. We're seeing data sets being created. It's not going to be long before next year's iteration is, hey, we had this application punch out that integrates with HubSpot and Salesforce over here, merges our data set so that our ERP works better. There will eventually be something like that. And low code in its current state can easily tie into some of those pieces. And I think that that's going to be awesome. I'm not necessarily saying we will do that. And it might not even be something that you need to create that integration for in Planted App specifically, because it will know what you want. You can go to it and say, I need this, drag and drop that code in, modify your workflows over in Planted App, and keep things moving.
Awesome. Thanks for the disclaimer. This is not on the roadmap yet. Yes, but I think it's very cool, and we had some machine learning and AI use cases also. I'm eager to hear other people in the community the use cases that you have with AI and machine learning, because this is something that we'll for sure have to do more and more in the future, as built-in and also as a community techniques, sharing community techniques on how to do it.
Yeah, because I can just imagine a future where you have some entities set up, maybe a few workflows, and then you can go into OpenAI Codex and just say, modify it to do this, and then it connects through the APIs to Plant app, does everything it needs, and keeps that tight integration for you. So
awesome. Cool. Thanks a lot, Chad, for giving us a broader perspective. It's always good because we get in, so deep into the day-to-day stuff. But it's good to get the head up and look a bit around. Cool. So probably you are wondering why am I delivering the product roadmap updates? I'm sure that some of you already know, but Reza has left our company. He went on to do his own thing, and I hope that we'll hear great things from him as well. But starting forward, I will pick up the product roadmap and the product management side. And just to give you a brief update today, we have already set a release date for 1.16. It will be in the first week of October. We are aiming for Tuesday, the 5th. But one week earlier, on the 27th of September, we'll have a private beta. So if you want to take it for a spin, let's get in touch, and I will make it available to the community. The major themes and goals are pretty much the same. We tried to make it a bit leaner, so we took some of the extra items out, but the main things remain the same. And finally, since this situation with Reza leaving, it was also a good time to bring new members in our team, not the cat, but to expand our team and also redesign our development processes for a bit, because it's been I think 1.5 years since we started Plant app in a public mode, and lots of lessons learned. So basically what we are pushing now on the 1.17 and further is to have shorter release cycles. So we are aiming for 2-week release cycles. And then all the extra stuff, because usually our releases get longer and longer because there's a lot of extra items that come up that we need to take on because they are important features, important bug fixes, security fixes, and so on. So what we'll do instead of putting them into the release, we'll do more hot fixes. So then the release stays fixed while hot fixes are delivered whenever they are needed. And at the end of when we are ready to release, we also incorporate all the hot fixes. So with this process, we hope to go at a much predictable and shorter rate, the shorter release cycle. And also we are hiring, so we are expanding our development team. So then we'll have more capacity to be able to run bigger releases in the same amount of time. So that's what's been happening so far. Yeah, I'm happy, personally, I'm happy to be back into this role. I've been in the product side most of my entrepreneurial life for 10 years or so. Being on the business side, on the sales side has been something that I've only done for a couple of last years. But now I'm very happy to be back here. So looking forward to start building more and more of these wonderful features. Cool. So now let's take it to Dale. And if you have any concerns, any questions, any feedback, any proposal, feature requests, please send me an email. I know I already have a couple of emails to respond to, so make sure that I will get back to you on those as well. Cool. So Dale, what do you have for us today?
Great. Well, so first I wanted to compliment Chad on that segment. I wasn't aware of anything that was going on with the AI Codex. So that's very interesting, and I think I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how that impacts what we're doing in low code going forward, but a very interesting segment. Bogdan, we're certainly happy to have you running product. And by the way, earlier you said called me head of product. I'm head of support. Don't want the head of product role. So you've got those particular Ruby slippers. So that's anyway, head of support. So today we're going to go on with building a low-code mobile application. This is part 3. So first we'll cover what we've gotten done so far, and then advance it to add new features. So this was our kind of roadmap where we were going, and we've gotten our back-end inventory system configured. We have built a mobile application using Adalo. It lists out locations and lets you drill down and see information. Last week we did added the ability to get you email information by email. You could just click a button and get a PDF delivered to your email showing the details about that particular artwork. And so today's focus, we're going to build a shopping cart, and it'll be interesting to see how far we get with that, but we'll get lots of the components done. So just kind of overview what we need to do is within our inventory system, we're going to add a shopping cart data, an entity model, and build the create, read, update, delete logic that needs to happen. Actually, that'll be automatically built for us. So that's kind of where we'll go. These are the steps that we're actually going to take today. Within Plant an App, we're going to build the shopping cart entity. We're going to need a user that interacts with that entities within Plant an App. If you're going to write to them or change, whether that's add or delete, you're going to need to have a user that does that work. So we'll create a user that does that work, and then we'll look at the changes, what's automatically built for us via the APIs, and then modify them. They're going to need to be public so that Adalo can talk to them. And then we're going to create a GetMyShoppingCart API so that the shopping cart can get populated. So that's going to happen on the Plant an App side. On the Adalo side, we need to be able to access that secure user, the support at plantanapp.com that's going to do our secure work. So within the code, we're going to add an access token to be able to make it very easy to do that work. And then we will set that token using JWT Security. We did a low-code feature-focused video some time ago about that kind of worked through how to do JWT Security, but now we'll really add that to our application and work it through. We'll also do an add to cart button on our application. We'll build out the cart page, and we'll add a buy now button. We'll see how far we get. In terms of whether or not we'll actually finish the buying cycle. That's pretty hard to do in the next 40 minutes, but we'll get well on our way. So let's start by just taking a look at what we've got done. So this is the Adalo canvas. If we preview the screen, we can see what we've got going on. We have home and locations. So if we were to go into locations and take a look at what's on display at our first floor, let's see, this is the first floor east wing of our building. We have the Starry Night showing up, also these other two. We can go into the detail, see the image itself. We get the description of the image, where it is. And we added this is where we added last week, the send detail button that automatically gets Plant an App to doing our hard backend work. It builds the PDF, sends the email. So that's where we got. So the idea here is that we'll add an add to cart feature to this page so that anything that you want to buy, if you want to buy a print, this will add it to your cart and set pricing. So, and it occurs to me in talking about that, we actually need to get the price added to our database. So we'll do that too. So this is our entity, and we'll add the price for print. See, we can do things real time here. So let's get started. We're going to create our entity, and the entity is going to look something like this. It's going to have, these are the properties we'll add, the email, description, quantity, price. The idea that one of our key things is that the user on Adalo has an email address. So I'm just going to do the cart where we have the email address as the key to recalling our cart. And so so that's why that one's there. And then we'll have a description of what they're buying, the quantity, the unit price. There's a whole lot of shopping cart logic that we're not going to get to, how to compute all the pricing and build up an order, and so then you've got fulfillment logic and everything. We're just going to handle just the cart stuff and see, so we can kind of see how that would work out within the mobile application. So here's our properties, and I'm going to get this visible on my left screen so I can stick with this. So let's get in and do it. So we are, let's see, not even logged in yet, so we'll get logged in. Because we're going to need to get to our configuration page. Great. So the entities we're going to add email for our shopping cart entity, and these are the properties. So we'll go to entities. We're going to create a new entity. For this will still relate to inventory, so we'll select a namespace, and the entity we're going to create is shopping cart, and the plural of that is shopping carts. We don't need to index shopping carts. Nobody's going to be searching for those. We'll go ahead and put it in the menu for now, and we'll include it under our artworks page just so it has a place to display and we can find it. And so now we have our new custom properties. So now description, quantity, and price. And we'll say the quantity, we're going to make that be a decimal number. Now, we'll be ordering integer prints, but if we do something else with our shopping cart down the line, we'll make it be decimal. And then for this, I'm going to pick a decimal number. I probably could do money, but we'll stick with a decimal for now. Make those all required, and we'll make the email be the display name. From a permissions standpoint, we'll make it where all users can view all the entities, but we don't particularly have a user's role, and so we're not going to worry about making users be able to view things. The manager, we're going to define this user that I mentioned for a security user. We're going to make them be a manager so that they'll have the ability to add and read and write and view. So we'll save this. And now we can take a look at it. So our shopping cart, if we take a look at that page, it's built for us. This will be where the shopping cart information ends up. So keeping track of where we're going here. So we've created the shopping cart, unit price per print. Actually, so that we can get farther with shopping cart, I'm going to save that for later. We can do that. So let's create a user. It's going to be the support@plantonapp.com user. And so I'm going to go to users and create that. So we'll do a new user and support@plantonapp.com. And this guy is going to be a manager. And so last name was required, so now we'll save this. One thing about creating a user this way, PlantonApp assumes that it's going to send an email and provide authorization. I'm just going to, I want to, rather than wait for that email, I'm going to just set the password for this user. So we will go in and just set a password. Super secret ABC password. So now we have a user that can log in and actually I like to test things, so we'll do that. Incognito, and we'll just test to make sure that this user can in fact log in. And so and they can. So we've successfully created a user, so that's the next step. So now we're going to take a look at our APIs and work on see what has been created and change some security. So if we go to our APIs and look at cart, we see that shopping cart and shopping carts get. So this is the create, read, update, delete logic. And then this one, it will allow you to get all of the carts. We're going to be using the ones here in shopping cart. And so I'm going to edit these first. So one of the things we want to do is to create a new shopping cart record. That's going to be some, and we don't have to change any of this logic that already works. But what we do have to do is say that instead of only domains associated with the current portal, we want to make this public. We could be more specific and set it to the Adalo one. We'd have to figure out what that domain is coming in as, but just setting it as public. And now we'll leave the JWT access. Managers are going to have the ability, if once they sign in, they're going to have the ability to write to this. So we'll save this change, and then continuing on, we will likely use the delete one as well. We could really change all of these in the same way, but for now, I'm just going to change these two. We'll see if we need more, we'll do it. Somebody remind me when something doesn't work, why it's not working, that we didn't change all of them. So, all right. And I think I just, maybe I didn't get, I got to double check now. This delete, make sure I got it right. Nope, didn't. It needs to be public. All right. So we've got those two done. And then, so we're going to use the ones that were automatically generated, but we've just made them be public. And then the last thing we want to do is we want to have a GetMyShoppingCart API. The one that's created for us by PlantonApp automatically, if we were to take a look at it, it doesn't do everything that we want to do because it only has it gets everything, all the records of all the shopping carts, and we only want the one for our email address. So we can't use this one, and I don't want to disturb the one that was automatically created in case we need it for exactly the purpose it was created for. So I am going to create a new one, and before I do, I'm going to do this by SQL. So I want to take a look at our have SQL console turned on. So this is a good time to do that. We'll turn on SQL console and save that because I want to take a look at what the data structure is. So I'm going to do select star shopping cart. And there's nothing in there yet, so that's not very helpful. I'm going to go in here and add a record to shopping cart just so that we have something to work on. So now when we look at that, we get a record that's returned back. And so I am going to say, this is kind of the pattern of, whoop, I don't want to save the query, I want to run the query. This is the pattern of the SQL that we're going to use where we're saying that we want a particular item or particular cart based on the email address. So now we can go back to APIs and we'll define a new one. And this new one is going to be called, we said we're going to call it GetMyShoppingCart. And it is a get, and this is so it's enabled, it's not being debugged. We have one parameter that we're going to have, which is email. And when it runs, we're going to do a couple of things. First is we're going to load entities SQL using the SQL that we've developed. And hopefully I copied that, yep. So we're going to select star from shopping cart where email is like some value, and we're going to bind, we're going to create a bind token here, and the value of this is going to be email address that came in, and also I'm also going to add a % to the end of it so that it's a wildcard. And this is, if you saw last week's episode, we need it for Adalo purposes, we need it to return data if nothing is returned. So this will, if we don't have a particular email address during our development, so this will solve that problem. We could come back later and remove the %. So anyway, we're going to make this be a parameter. So we're going to select star from shopping cart where email is like the email address that was provided here. And we're going to put our output is going to be, I'm just going to simply call it result. We will then output the result as an entity list. And so what we're outputting is result. From a security standpoint, we need to, it's going to stay public. And this one can just be a public, who cares if they return an email. We could set up JWT security for this, but we'll just say that this is public. We don't care if somebody hacks in and looks at somebody else's cart. So let's save and test, see if we've got this right. First of all, we execute it with no parameters, and it says, and it gives us our one record. And if we give it an actual email address, which this matches the data that's on file, that works. And if we put in something that's unknown, now we get nothing. So this is working. And if we really wanted to make sure, we should run this in an incognito window to make sure that it doesn't fail. Incognito, and sure enough, there it is. It's returning a record. So it's going to work fine in Adalo. So we have now a GetMyShoppingCart API, so we're good to go there. And so next we will start working in Adalo and start working on this general access token thing. So here's our app from Adalo before, and what we want to do is what I found with Adalo is within their database we have added some external collections that are calling our data from the Plant and App application. And then there's this user table that gets built automatically and provided automatically as people work through the sign up and the login. So the neat thing, if we take a look at any, if we're looking at information within their magic text feature, the logged in user fields are always available. And that's the feature I'm going to rely on. I'm going to create this new bearer token that needs to happen for JWT Security. And I'm going to, every time when they log in, we'll create that token and we'll just put it into the user entity. So we're going to, that's why I'm doing what we're doing here. So I'm going to go into users and add a property, and it's going to be a text property that I'm going to call general access token. It doesn't have to space this out, general access token. But this is the security thing that's going to be provided automatically to every user, so they don't have to have their own security. And anytime we need to do a secure something, we'll just use the general access token. So that's creating the general access token. And so we've created that. And now we need to set that token every time with JWT Security. So let's take a look at JWT Security. These are the steps that you need to do to get a bearer token from JWT. You do a post operation to this API, JWT auth API mobile login. This last part, the desktop modules and on part, is always going to be the same. The site name is going to be your site name, whatever the Plantain App site name is. So I'm going to copy that. And then the first part of it is, just to be clear, it's this. So I'm going to copy that as well. So it's going to be calling this website with JWT authorization as a post. It has to have two headers. One is the content type, one is the character set, and then the body is the username and password that's trying to sign in. So we'll sign in with the username and password, and then it's going to give us, as a result, an authorization token. So let's see how that fits into Adalo. The place where we want to do this is when you log in. And for simplicity, I'm just going to do it on the login side. We might it really should be on the sign up side as well. So that, let's see, maybe we can do it on the home. Let's see if we can find where that, the actions on entering the home screen are. Actions, when a user visits the screen, we can do things when they visit the screen. So since both of these dump into the home screen, we'll do our work there to get our authorization. So we're going to add another action, and it's going to be a custom action. We don't have one yet built, so we're going to build it. It's a new custom action, and the action is going to be called security token, and they make you pick a type, so we'll call it a create, and then next. So now here we have the URL that we need to call, and so we'll see the parts and pieces of our URL. This is, it's always going to call our website, and it always needs to call this second part, the mobile login part. It needs to be a post, and then there's, as I said, there's going to be those couple of headers. So first, before we do headers, I'm going to add the username and password here. So we're going to have an input of username, and the test value of this is one we actually set up, and then we're going to have another one that's called password, and my super secret password for that account. So we'll be able to use username and password in our work. So we'll add the first thing we need to do, add a header, and it's going to be the content type is the header type, and it needs to be application JSON. We're also going to do a character set, F8. So let's do those. So the first header is content type application JSON. We're done there. We're going to add another one, another header that is character set, UTF-8, done. And now the body, what we're going to post is going to be this thing, username and password. And sorry, wrong screen. And so this is a little JSON object, and using the magic text, I'm going to use the username that we pass in and the password that we pass in. And so this is everything for JWT Security. It's calling a URL with a post, a couple of different headers, passing the username and password. Those are inputs to this function call. So we'll be able to use this same function call if we actually enable and activate real user security, not just a generic one. We'll be able to pass that in and get our result. But we'll run the test results, the test request with our username and password. And so it says test is successful. We got a user ID, a display name. See, the display name was for cart use only. It got an access token. That's the thing we care about, a renewal token, which I don't know what to do with. I'm sure we can figure that out, but it gave us these 4 things back, and we're going to care about the access token. So this worked. That's kind of a first. It worked the first time through. So now, remembering where we are, we're on the actions that get executed when somebody visits the home screen, and we're going to pass in, we've created our new get security token functionality, and we're going to pass in those same values. Support at plantanapp.com with the super secret password, and we're done. So that's going to get us a token. The question is, what do we do with it? Well, remember, we have our logged in user, and we have this general, we could change, we're going to do an update. We could change anything, but what we're going to change is the general access token. So this is going to be, let's see, did login date. The outputs from this should show up, and they're not. So this is a problem I've run into with Adalo before. I'm going to try to just refresh and see if it's going to bail me out. Otherwise, we're in trouble. So the actions that we're doing, the update, magic text, users. Well, since it didn't give us the outputs of this thing, let's make sure I did this right. We'll run our test request.
There are some comments in the chat. Somebody noticed the extra slash in the URL. Maybe that's the culprit.
Great. Let's figure out if. Thank you for that. I wasn't looking at the comments, and let's see if that gets us any better of a result. The test request is returning information. I'm going to get rid of the things that these should automatically be added, but I'm going to get rid of the ones that we don't care about. We only really care about the access token. It is an output. So we'll save that and see if we get it. Update and access token. And I've seen, okay, so now I am going to panic. No, we're gonna because this is not working. I've seen this before with Adalo, where for some reason the outputs don't show up, and so I'm going to cheat so we can move on. We have this access token. And hopefully we'll get all of it. And while the right thing to do would be to take the access token and update it from the result of the get security token action, I'm going to paste it here, and hopefully I've got the whole thing and it's going to work. So see if that's saved. It's long, and that might be part of why it's doing what it's doing. We were on the home screen, actions. We had it saved the value, so we'll know shortly whether or not this thing worked. So let's pretend that it did and go on. We've created a general access token. We've hard-coded now the JWT Security. We've just grabbed one that will work, and we'll sort out the actually doing it right later. So the next thing we need to do is build an add to cart button. So add to cart is going to happen on item detail right here. And so we'll add an add to cart button. And we'll call it the we'll give it the name of add to cart. We'll put the text as add to cart, and we'll make it a little longer so we can actually see it. And so the actions that this needs to do is that, and let's give it a nice icon. Sure. We have a cart button here, so we'll do that. When we click this, we want it to do two things. One, we want it to push all of the information from our item detail into our cart on the primary system, the artwork system. And then we also want it to link to a new page that shows the cart. And so we'll work on the first of those. So this is going to be a custom action, new custom action, and this is going to be add to the external cart. This is going to be a create, and now we need to go back and find our API information. So we go to APIs. Remember, we said we're going to use the shopping cart post, and here are the values that it's expecting. And so I'm going to do this, grab this URL here, and I'm going to copy that. And we also are going to need to pass these parameters. So let's call it. It's going to be a reminder. It's a post method, so we're going to be calling it with a post. So here's our API. Shopping cart. It is a post. For our headers, we need the authorization, and it's going to be error space plus that. We need to pass. This is going to be something that needs to be passed in. So it's text. It's the error token, and for testing purposes, we're also going to grab grab the one that we've used. This is going to tell us whether we got it all and if it worked right. Some extra information at the end there, so that'll be interesting to see if it causes us trouble. But we're going to say bearer space and that input parameter. and done. So that gets us our security to be able to run this post. And then the body of what we're doing, we're going to build it up here. So we've got to pass the 4 fields. So the first one was email. This reminds me, let's go ahead and add these items in. So we need to pass in the email. Use a different email address for that, for my test data, just to demonstrate it. We're going to add in a description, which is the next one is quantity. We'll say 1. Last one is unit price. Make this an expensive test print here. So the email, now that we've got these inputs, we can use them in our JSON. The next one is going to be text description. Editor is not completely friendly to me. Price. And again, this has to match these input parameter names on our API. So we'll take our last one here. So we've built a JSON of exactly, if I've done the syntax right, exactly what I'm expecting on this side. And that's going to be posted. Actually type authorization. That header was looking weird to me. So we have an authorization header that's going to be passed that has the bearer token. And so now we get to test and see if we got anywhere close. So it says test successful to our shopping cart post. And what we've posted is we've got back, it's an ID2. This is all the field. These are all the fields that we got back. So we can save this custom action. And now if we were to take a look at our shopping cart, we should see this test item that came in and 599. So what we've done now is we built the test action for add to the external cart, and now we actually have to pass it the information. So from the bearer token that we're going to pass in, we're going to pass in the general access token. The email we're going to pass is the user's email. The description of what we're going to pass in is going to be the title of the item. So we're going to get that from here. Maybe we can embellish a little bit. The quantity, we'll just pick 1. The unit price, we didn't carry that forward, so we'll just say that all these are going to be $15 hard-coded. We could, again, have tied that to the item detail and carry it forward if they're going to have different prices, but we're done. And then another action then is to go to the new screen that's going to be called cart. So that we'll display our cart. And that's it. So we can create that. So we click the button, it's going to add to the external cart and link to the cart. Now we didn't actually build that yet, so and I'm just going to move this underneath here so that we don't get confused on where the arrows are going. So add to cart is going to take us down to the cart. So let's see if this thing works. Build and test, build and test. So the screen, we're going to add the screen print. We'll say add to cart. It did something. It went to the cart page, which we haven't developed yet. And if we refresh this page here in our database, we can see it added my username, print the screen, added a $15 item. So now we have the beginning that we've added we have our button that adds to the cart. So I see we're 2 minutes till, and the next step would be to use the Get API. So we have the GetMyShoppingCart API. This is the same technique that we did last time. I'll do this offline if we ever come back to this this project to do more. But in terms of our next steps, we would add a list of what we had here. Then we would start to have buttons, delete from cart, which could use our same delete automatically generated by the print and app interface. We could have a pay now button, and that would collect the funds. And I think depending on whether Adalo has the ability to actually collect funds, we might route back to a plant and app page that has the PayPal or one of our other collection tools on it to actually collect the money. But all of it's very possible and doable. We just ran out of time, 40 minutes. I hope that was of value. Now, questions, no open questions yet, questions or comments. But thanks for putting up with things that I don't know or things that it does a little bit funny. And let's see, Bogdan, are you available to close us out?
You bet. Cool. So yeah, thanks. Very, very interesting. I think this is the third one on building this mobile application. Probably the last one. We'll move on to new topics, but as you said, not necessarily that will come back to this particular app, but I think you'll start seeing mobile apps coming from Plant and App. Cool. So thanks, Dave, for preparing this content. Thanks also, Chad, for giving us the broader perspective on the future of software development. And thanks, everyone, for being here again this week. And there is a feedback form. We'd appreciate hearing your feedback on the types of content that you'd like to see. And we'll be seeing you again next week, same day, same hour. Bye.